There we go. What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the Only Sports Podcast. That's right, the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. Usually Casino's over here. Today he is not. It is only I to do the Week 11 NFL Power Rankings. I got some slides, but before we get into that, on Wednesday's show, I talked about how AJ Brown had those comments on the Eagles, but now that he has clarified those comments and all that kind of stuff, I think I'm on the side of just stop talking about it. I just think we should stop talking about it. This is awful. Let me restart this. Hold on. What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the Only Sports Podcast. That's right, the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. Usually Casino is here today, but he is not, because today we are doing NFL Power Rankings for Week 11. I've made slides for all the groups of it. At the end of it, we will be reviewing, or revealing, should I say, the newest Super Bowl bubble. So without further ado, let's get into the power ranking. I have Casinos here, but I also didn't put his on the slide because this is my power rankings, and then we can compare it to Casinos. First up, let's go to the bottom 6 teams. So the bottom 6 right here, you see in order, they are Titans at 32, Jets 31, Giants at 30, Raiders at 29, Browns at 28, and Saints at 27. So, I mean, really, I think we should start with the Jets on this one. Thursday night games are always weird, and last night's game was no exception. That game was weird. It was a typical Thursday night game, which is we have seen over the course of the Thursday night games, the really good teams just struggle, especially with divisional opponents. We obviously saw the Giants that are on this bottom 6 destroy the Eagles. We saw the Bills and Dolphins go in that shootout. We saw a 10-7 game a week ago between the Raiders and Broncos. So these Thursday night games, I don't think you can put as a merit for if a team is good or not. That's why we're doing this on a Friday. Win or lose, I don't think the Patriots would have been affected on my list just because of that Thursday game, unless they would have just got absolutely smoked by the Jets. And then you would have been like, oh, I don't know, maybe they're not as good as we think they are. But obviously they beat the Jets by 10 points last night. So let's talk about the Titans. You got to feel bad for Cam Ward. I just really think when it comes to Cam Ward, again, Casino and I have talked about it on the show, where it's just one of those things where he just doesn't have anybody around him. There's nobody on his team. Again, we've never been a big Tony Pollard fan, even when he was at Dallas. When Zeke left and it was Tony Pollard's, time to shine in Dallas, I had no faith in him whatsoever, and that has continued for his entire career. So him being the lead back on your Titans team, I don't think is, a coup or any type of gives Cam Ward any type of out where it's like, well, at least they have a running game. Like, they don't have weapons. They don't have a running game. They don't have anything on that team. So defense worse than last year, because shockingly, the Titans, even though they got the number 1 pick, had like the second best defense in the league by the time the season ended last year. This year, their defense is worse. Their offense is obviously the worst in the league. I believe they're scoring the least amount of points with just under 14. So they're averaging less than 2 touchdowns a game, which explains why they're a 1-2 win team. So next up, we have the Jets. And again, the Jets, kind of the same thing with Cam Ward, where also with Aaron Glenn, where he's a defensive guy. He gets there at the trade deadline. All of a sudden, they're trading 2 of their biggest stars on the defensive side of the football, where 2 years ago, that Jets defense was top 5 in the league. Now they're bottom 5 in the league, and that was with the stars. So now they lost those 2 stars. They got that new wide receiver from the Colts that there's literally a compilation online from last night's game against the Patriots, where all that guy did was pretty much drop every pass that hit him right in the hand. So if you're the Jets, got to feel bad for Justin Fields, got to feel bad for Aaron Glenn. And that front office is just, again, one of the worst in sports, maybe one of the worst in sports histories. I don't know how you can just be that inept at your job and still just be like, oh yeah, maybe it's the coach or quarterback. Like, maybe that's our issue. And it's like, yeah, let's try a different combination of, the same issues we've been having forever and keep the same front office guy in ownership. And Woody Johnson's comments apparently weren't that motivating to Justin Fields, because it hasn't changed the fortunes at all. So what is it? Next up, we have the other New York team, which is the Giants. Much like the Jets, they have just lost everybody on their team. Unlike the Jets, they didn't trade them away. They just lost them to injury. Obviously, when there was Dart there and there was Scadaboo in that kind of month window where it was like, are the Giants good? Are the Giants this fun, young, energetic team to watch? And they were. They beat the Chargers. As I said, they killed my Eagles on that Thursday night game. And it was like, something's happening here. They obviously had lost Malik Neighbors earlier in the year, but then just bad luck struck, and then they fired Daboll, which again, everybody was saying, oh, how can you fire Daboll? How can you fire Daboll? But he had 3 seasons in a row where he started the season 2-7. Again, we look around the league and we see teams just riddled with injuries. They're not all 2-7. Like, again, just never being able to find a way to kind of put a team around even your young star guys before Dart got there, Scadaboo got there. I don't know why Daboll was just this thing where it was like, why are we not just giving him another chance? And then it was like, how much of a leash do you want to give this guy? But whatever. Also, I'm a Daboll hater, so that might be biased on my part. Next up, let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders, currently where I live and have lived my whole life, Las Vegas. We finally got a football team, and that football team has not been good for 25 plus years. Definitely have not been good in Vegas. This was supposed to be the year they turned it around with Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, Tom Brady, all that kind of stuff. And instead, what they do are just one of the most heavily turnover-based teams in the league in the negative. So they turn the ball over way more than they get the ball back. So that it has mostly to do with Geno Smith, their quarterback, who I believe still leads the league in interceptions, probably will lead the league in interceptions at the end of the season if they don't make a quarterback change. But why would they? It's not like they have anybody else on their team who they could at least give a shot to. So Las Vegas Raiders, again, I had high hopes going into the season for Ashton Jeanty, and then nothing happened. So Raiders might be on this list of biggest disappointments for me personally. Next up, we have the Saints at number 27. The Saints, again, I just think Kellen Moore, as an Eagles fan, I would have wished he stayed with my team because that offense, again, is night and day difference from what they were last year. But this year, Saints, again, I like what they did with Ritter. I don't really understand why they sat him. He was clearly not the reason they were losing games and just made the quarterback change to what, Shao or however you say his name. But again, the offense for the Saints is 26. They traded away Shaheed. They just don't feel like they have, what is it, enough pieces on that team offensively or defensively to, kind of compete with even the Falcons in that division. It just feels like they are clearly the fourth team, clearly one of the bottom six. And then finally, the Browns. Who would have thought the Browns would be a bad team after, what is it, paying $250 million to a quarterback who doesn't play? Like, who could have seen that coming? And then not only that, but then trading away probably the best quarterback on your team to a division rival who then immediately goes there and is having, the Flacco renaissance, the Flacco resurgence on a bad Bengals team that even Burrow looked worse on. And then all of a sudden he's slinging it all over the field, not turning the ball over. The Bengals, a week ago were like one game away from being 500, like amazingly. So, and still with the Steelers, kind of faltering in that division, the Browns obviously being the Browns, and then the Ravens starting the season in this deep hole and trying to dig themselves out of it. The Bengals are still kind of alive in that division with Flacco. So the Browns chose Gabriel. How long until Gabriel gets sat and we see Shedeur Sanders? Who knows? I said that weird, but who cares? But yeah, that right there is 32 to 27. Let's go to the next slide, which is 26 to 22. And that is in order. It is 26 Cardinals, 25 Commanders, 24 Dolphins, 23 Bengals, and 22 Falcons. So this, if we had names for each one of these slides, this would have been the one where you would have just said going into the season, like all these teams and all these fan bases just had high hopes, even when there was no reason to. Again, Casino and I, go follow us on TikTok, Only Sports Podcast on TikTok. We had TikToks at the beginning of the season previewing the season, and the amount of Dolphins fans and Cardinals fans who were like, not only is this our year, but like, we're going to be good this year. Not only are we going to be good this year, we're going to be like win our division good this year. And both Casino and I thought these teams would both be dumpster fires. Again, the entire offseason for the Miami Dolphins was just spent where other players on other teams were talking about how insane it was when they would do joint practices or those preseason games, where they all practice or scrimmage against each other. Other teams were coming out saying how dysfunctional the Dolphins practices were, knowing full well they would most likely have to see that same team during the season. Didn't care. That's how bad it got. So when it comes to all the media reports, sometimes half the time that shit's true. Like, it just is. So the truth of just the Dolphins being a dumpster fire was true. The truth of the Cardinals having a bad coach and a bad coaching staff, also true. As an Eagles fan, again, every Eagles fan I know was excited when we got rid of Gannon. So all of a sudden, all the Cardinals fans in the offseason were telling me, oh, you're just, a bitter old Eagles fan who didn't like this coach and are sad we got him. Like, no. Nobody liked Gannon in Philadelphia. Nobody thought he was a good defensive coordinator. I still to this day think he was the biggest sole reason the Eagles lost that first Super Bowl to the Chiefs. So the Cardinals getting him as a head coach, it was kind of one of those things where it was like, why would I ever want that guy to be the coach of my team on the defensive front, let alone the head coach? And then obviously Kyler Murray's out, but Jacoby Brissett's came in and actually done better. And then really the Commanders, it's been all injuries, right? With Jaden Daniels, their defense is older. They've lost Debo and Terry McLaurin most of the season, right? So with the Commanders, again, you can say last year was a fluke, and it probably was, because looking back, there's no way that team was good enough to warrant them being in the NFC Championship game. But to fall that far from NFC Championship to bottom of their division, I don't think is, neither of those two extremes are probably what this team is at its core, which is this core is a borderline fringe fighting for a playoff spot. But because of injuries, they're kind of just going to finish, hopefully, with a good draft pick, so the oldest team in the league can get a little bit younger. Bengals, again, everybody knew what the issue was in the Bengals offseason. Even the players would talk about it, which was, oh, yeah, their defense and offensive line are bad. And then in the offseason, what they did was sign their quarterback and two best wide receivers, addressing none of the issues that the Bengals media, the Bengals fans, even the Bengals players, or just football watchers in general knew was the issue, which was the Bengals O-line and defense. So they had that weird thing with their first round pick, and then he's kind of just been a non-factor this year, going back to the Giants, kind of like Abdul Carter, who big hype going into the season, hasn't done anything this season. I think he has like a half a sack over halfway through the season, which is not ideal. But again, that Bengals first round pick just doing nothing. That defense, again, improved, but not improved enough to where it makes a difference. Oh, and by improved, I mean they're 32nd in the league. So they were actually better, and they're getting progressively worse as the season goes on. So that's what you love to see. And then with the Falcons, again, the Falcons are a team that is maybe the most confusing team in the league. How is this Falcons team not better? They just have all the pieces. Michael Penix, again, is maybe the most inconsistent quarterback in the league. After that week one game, I was like, everybody was right. Michael Penix actually looks pretty good. And then since then, all he's done is just prove that thought wrong, which is just like, oh, no, he's actually bad. And that first game was the outlier, not what he consistently is going to be. This team, again, you just put them on paper and you say all the weapons they have, and you're just like, Bijan Robinson, arguably top 5 wide receiver in the league, or top 5 running back in the league. Drake London, arguably top 5 wide receiver in the league. Kyle Pitts, again, hype alone should have been a top 5 tight end in this league, but he's having a, I guess, decent season for a season, or for a weak tight end season, but that's just my fantasy brain talking right there. And then after the Falcons, I do, again, really like their defense. Falcons top 10 defense in the league. They've only allowed 19 touchdowns, which is 4 more than the Broncos, who currently have allowed the lowest amount of touchdowns this season on defense. So Falcons defense is good. If they could just figure out their quarterback on offense for maybe next year, I don't know. The Falcons, again, should be more formidable than they actually are. Let's move it on to the next slide. Let's go teams 21 through 17. And we have in order at 21, Vikings, 20 Texans, 19 Cowboys, 18 Panthers, and then 17 Jaguars. So with this, again, Vikings, how many bites of the apple at the quarterback apple did they have before they finally settled on J.J. McCarthy? And then he got hurt. There was weird stuff out there where they apparently kept him out longer than they were supposed to, or that he wanted to. I don't know. That was all weird. And instead went with Carson Wentz. We all saw how that happened. Carson Wentz, just Carson Wentz. And now the Vikings are last in that division, when, remember, last year they were a 14-win team. They should have kept Darnold. I still don't understand why they let him go. It's not like they had to pay him $50 million a year. But again, they believed in McCarthy, and he's shown flashes, but again, he's still a rookie. So who knows? With the Texans, again, the Texans currently right now have the number 1 defense in the entire league. They have allowed the second fewest touchdowns, and they are what? In second place in that division, or third place in that division, well behind who's going to win that division, which is the Indianapolis Colts. But it just is one of those things where, again, is CJ Stroud regressed that much? Has he regressed that much to the point where it's not just like the one good year he had was a fluke? Because last year it felt like he was doing all that, but everybody was injured. So it was like, well, he's not having as good of a year, but it's because everybody's injured. This year, there's also injuries, but he feels like he's been the reason they're bad. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on with that team, especially offensively. But when you look at, when you just look at the Texans, they're the ones that it just feels their offense is kind of abysmal, but it's 15th in the league. But when you watch the games, you're like, this feels like one of the worst offenses in the league. I don't know. Next up, we go to the Cowboys. And again, the Cowboys' problem is they have the number 4 ranked total offense in the league. Their passing offense is elite. Brian Schottenheimer on the offensive side of the ball, it just works, right? That was the biggest question mark about this team going into it was, will their head coach work? And it's like, yeah, he does. The only issue is their defense is currently 31st in the league, allowing 33 touchdowns on the season, almost 400 yards of total offense a game. So when you talk about the Cowboys, it's like, yeah, they're going to have to outscore everybody to win games. The only problem is that's not a feasible way to win games. And they are currently, in the league, 3-5-1, and they have allowed 277 points against them, which is a lot, not ideal. Yes, their offense is elite, but we've seen also their offense sputter and stall out. So again, if the Cowboys can make a run, could they make it in the NFC? Probably not, but they're going to be a team that you see on the schedule where you're just like, oh yeah, they're going to beat some people, but they're also just going to lose really dumb games like that Broncos game where it's just like, oh yeah, when the offense doesn't put up 30 plus points a game, like we're going to get our ass kicked. And that's exactly what's happened. With the Panthers are the most curious team. Everybody pretty much in the NFC South is, because it's like Saints are bad, but they're feisty and all their games are kind of close. Falcons appear to be one of the most talented teams in the league, and they just can't put all the pieces together to make a formidable team. And then the Panthers right now are 5-5. They've allowed 50 more points against them than they've scored, and they have scored 20 more points than the Saints, who are a team 3 wins worse than them. So it just doesn't make sense. And again, when you look at on paper, the Panthers have the 27th ranked total offense and and the 16th ranked defense. So they're middle of the road in defense, bad on offense, and yet they're still a 5-5 team that's like a fringe last spot in the wild card playoffs. Does not make sense at all. But again, Bryce Young, is he good or not? I don't know. But the Panthers, again, 5-5 is insane. Next up, we have the Jaguars in the AFC South, and they are currently not tied. They are currently a game ahead of the Houston Texans, who they just lost to. So 5-4, they're 3 games back of the Indianapolis Colts, or obviously the class of that division. I'll tell you what, looking at this where it's Colts, Steelers, Patriots on the AFC, and then Seahawks in the NFC West at the top of that. It feels like 2024, 2025 again. Like this is the time is a flat circle and it just keeps repeating itself. But as far as the Jaguars go, how long as a football watching community do we just keep going Trevor Lawrence good or bad? How long do we just keep having this debate? Because I feel like we're always going to have that debate and just be like, is he good? Is he bad? And then all of a sudden it's going to be year 14 with the Jaguars and he's going to be doing his farewell tour. And the whole time everybody's going to be going like, yeah, but we never decided if he was good or bad or not. He's always kind of just all the potential in the world, came out with all the hype in the world, and then he's just not really done much. And it feels like each year he regresses just a little bit. Great hair, though. Great hair. Next up, let's go to the final 4 before we get into the real contenders in this league. And again, these guys are on this list. If I named each of these, which I might name each of these next time, but this one would be the contenders that are they or aren't they contenders, the ones that you look at and you just go, if the pendulum swung in their favor just a little bit, would they, what is it? If the pendulum swung just a little bit, would these teams be legit contenders? Like the Bears, where it's 6-3 with the Bears, would, if they can just, let's say Detroit loses to the Eagles, the Bears win this week, and then Green Bay just kind of starts this downward spiral they're kind of already in the middle of. Like, let's say Green Bay gets upset by the Giants, new coach theory and all that kind of stuff. Then the Bears beat the Vikings, and then the Lions lose to the Eagles in a game where, again, those things, the Giants beating the Packers was the biggest long shot, but the other two things could potentially happen. So if those happen and all of a sudden the Bears are 7-3 and at the top of the NFC North, is anybody but Bears fans going to think that that team is legit? Like, I don't know. Same with the Steelers. Like the Steelers, again, we did it on Wednesday. The Ravens right now at third in that division, or now they're second, but they were third, fourth in that division when Lamar came back, and they still had a 75% chance to win that division, despite the Steelers at that time being like 5-3. So nobody believes in this Steelers team. Again, Aaron Rodgers had his most un-Aaron Rodgers-like game on that Sunday night or that Monday night game against the Chargers. Do you trust Aaron Rodgers in the big games? I don't know, especially when he plays games that aren't very Aaron Rodgers-y. And that defense is bad for the Steelers. Again, the hallmark of these Steelers teams, especially in the Mike Tomlin era, has always been lights out defense. They're 28th in the league in total defense. They're a bottom 5 defense. So again, when they have to play Lamar Jackson, are they going to be able to contain him or hold that Ravens team to under 30 points? Are they themselves going to be able to do shootouts like they did in week 1 against the Jets? I don't know. I don't think so. But again, crazier things have happened. But again, with these older quarterbacks, these older players, I just think the longer the season goes on and the more hits you take, it's not like it makes you any better unless for some reason you're, have found the fountain of youth like Matthew Stafford. But Rodgers, again, getting kind of a little bit worse every week, and I think you can kind of factor in why. Next up, we have his former team, the Green Bay Packers. And again, Green Bay, a month into the season, was the number 1 team in the league. Everybody was like, it's Packers and then everybody else. And then we started playing the games, and the Packers, again, haven't had a signature win in a month. Right? We always talk about that. Their last game against the Eagles, again, against an Eagles defense that is finding their footing, but is in no way what they were last year, which is just this elite unit, is only able to score 7 points at home with extra rest, all that kind of stuff. But again, Eagles coming off a bye, should have been just a blowout. So maybe that's where you give the Packers a little bit of credit. But week before that, they lose to the Panthers 16-13. They beat the Steelers by 10 points, win against the Cardinals by 4 points, win against the Bengals by 9 points. It's not like these wins aren't good. Those are good wins. It's just none of them give you enough confidence where you're like, oh yeah, my assertion a month ago where this was the best team in the league is being, those flames are being fanned. Like, no, the Packers, again, on paper, top 4 defense, top 4 offense, all that kind of stuff. And you watch the games and you're like, where is it? Especially in these big games, because now their offense went from top 5 down to 12. So their offense is getting a little bit worse every week. Their defense is still elite, but then when you watch the games, it's like, where are those things? Now on Monday, yes, their defense was good. That was a defensive battle, but Jordan Love, again, is he the guy? Everybody was just so quick to be like, they had Brett Favre, then they had Aaron Rodgers, now it's Jordan Love. And it was just like, really? Without doing anything? Because again, before you were saying it was Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, then Jordan Love. Like half of that first season of him was rough. And I'm not even talking about his rookie season. I'm talking about that one season where, what, like a year or two ago, where it was like the first 8 weeks of the season, it was like, oh, is this guy good? Like, I don't know. And then he turned it around and kind of hasn't looked back, but also not a good sign where your coach is already being linked to other jobs and already there's rumors of the organization being done with him. Not good, especially when you're kind of in the thick of things. Now let's move on to the 49ers at 14, or I'm sorry, the 49ers at 13. And, or no, yeah, 49ers at 14. So I switched those. Packers should be at 13, but whatever. The 49ers, again, how they are holding this team together with just shoestring and bubblegum, because how in the hell is this 49ers team 6-4 and a game and a half in that division? Again, we give a lot of shit, me especially, to Kyle Shanahan. This has been one of the best coach jobs we've seen in a long time. That is just going under the radar because of how good the Rams and Seahawks have been this season. But with all the injuries sustained, with pretty much restarting this defense with everybody they lost and traded away, I think when we were talking about this team at the beginning of the season, they lost like 8 or 9 defensive starters on the side of the ball, and then obviously brought back Robert Saleh from the Jets. And this defense, again, it's not what it was at its peak, but it's 21st in the league with just the no-name defense, right? And then offensively, they've had Mac Jones, they've had Brock Purdy, and they're 11th in the league in total offense. So with how many injuries, new players, all that kind of stuff, being in just a brutal, maybe the toughest division this year, they're right in the thick of things at 6-4. I'm no 49ers fan, but you have to tip your cap and just say it's what they're doing over there is super impressive. Now, let's move into the top 12, and this is the newest edition of the Super Bowl bubble. Again, Cowherd stole it from the show. I can't prove it, but he's never done it before we did this on the show. And our graphics are better because they look like actual bubbles. Again, I can't prove it. You can't prove it that I'm wrong. So for the Super Bowl bubble, we're just starting at number 12, and it goes Chargers, Ravens at 11, Bucks at 10, Bills at 9, Broncos at 8, and Colts at 7. So I think with these teams, you have to be outside of the actual Super Bowl bubble and kind of on the fringe, because the Super Bowl bubble, the point of it is there's little bubbles on the outside that can be absorbed into the big bubble. But right now they're just on the fringes. So with the Chargers, again, the Chargers are one of those teams where 8th in the league in total offense, and their defense is 4th in the league. So they have the 8th best offense, 4th best defense. But when you watch the games, you're just like, how are the Chargers not better? They are 7-3, and no one has any confidence in them, just because after that week 1 victory against the Chiefs, their games all have just been kind of weird. They never score as much as you think they should. They lose games, again, like against the Colts, where they kind of got blown out. They lost that weird game against, what is it? Wasn't it Denver or something like that? I'll look at their full schedule right now. But they were, oh no, it was the Giants. That's what it was. They lost 2 weeks in a row to the Giants and then Commanders, where both they just didn't show up in either of those games. And it was, again, just weird. They get blown out by the Colts, but then they blow out the Vikings. It's a close game against the Titans. They have a kind of not competitive at all game against the Steelers. So it's like hot and cold each week. 1 week they're blowing out the Vikings. 1 week they're struggling against the 1-win Titans. And then the week after that, they're destroying the Steelers. Then they're getting blown out back-to-back weeks by both the Commanders and the Giants. Chargers file them in with the opposite of the Falcons, where the Falcons are 3-7, and everybody's like, how are you 3-7? You're too talented to be 3-7. With the Chargers, it's like, you're so talented to be 7-3. How are you not better? How do we not have more confidence in you? Because that's where I am with the Chargers, which is just, I should have more confidence in you, but when you watch the games, yeah, on paper they look great. When you watch the games, it's like, yeah, Herbert's a great quarterback, except how it seems every time the game is always a comeback win for the Chargers because Herbert kind of digs them in the hole and then has to dig them back out of it. With the Ravens, again, the story of the Ravens is they're in a very winnable week AFC North, which is different than what the AFC North usually is, right? So the Ravens are 4-5 right now, a game back of the Steelers, and with the hole they dug themselves in going, I believe they were 1-5, 1-4, right? And they're just on a winning streak. Lamar came back. The biggest improvement has been the defense. We talked about all that on Wednesday's episode. Yes, they're only 26 in total defense, but that's not, well, I guess that is counting. That is not counting just the last couple of weeks where they just have allowed everyone to score less than 20 points defensively. Their defense looks like a completely new unit. And again, the question mark was, when Lamar Jackson is away, can they figure out this defense so then when he comes back, they can plug in this guy who always pretty much averages 30 plus points with this team. And if they can just get their defense right, they're going to start rolling. Exactly what happened. So now after they go against the Browns this week, which is not a gimme, the Browns defense is great, but the Browns this week, if the Ravens win, they're back at 5-5. Steelers again are against a game against Cincinnati. That's not a gimme win with what Joe Flacco's doing over there. So after this week, the Ravens could very well be at the top of their division, where I think we talked about it. They have like 5 remaining divisional games, 5 or 6. So Ravens, again, sleeper team that Casino and I both picked to go to the Super Bowl. It could happen if they just keep rolling. Next up, the Buccaneers. And again, the Bucs, the real issue with them has been injuries pretty much on both sides of the ball, but then also they're 20th in the league in total defense. So they're getting back a bunch of pieces on the offensive side of the ball, and Baker Mayfield has been great. But again, their defense or their offense is 17th, their defense is 20th. So their record does not indicate what they kind of are on paper, which is just like a pretty average team that's just getting insane quarterback play out of Baker Mayfield. So when they start getting guys back, I expect that offense to be better, but Mike Evans is out. They're going to get Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving back. They're going to get some guys back on the defense. But again, I think they were kind of the flavor of the month a month ago, and it's kind of just cooled off. Next up, the Bills. The Bills are a weird one because, again, that Kansas City game, they should have won by 3 touchdowns, and instead they kind of gave Kansas City a chance at the end to win it, where it was like, how? And then they get blown out by the Dolphins. Josh Allen is turning the ball over at alarming rates the past couple weeks. So it's just when James Cook doesn't have over 100 yards a game, they lose. So again, the whole thing with Buffalo was, we want to build a team around Josh Allen where he doesn't have to be Superman every game to win it. They've done it, and now he's kind of turning into Clark Kent, where every week he's fumbling the ball in a quarterback sneak, aka a tush push, which they run more than anybody. He's throwing interceptions. Something's up with the Bills. It just does not look right. Broncos defensively, 3rd in the league in total defense. Offensively, they're 13th in the league in total offense, and that has a lot to do with J.K. Dobbins, who is doing great this season, but also Bo Nix plays better from when he's behind, but he throws the worst deep ball in the league, maybe the most inaccurate deep ball in the league. His just arm is too big. He always overshoots everybody. And then, again, they're in a division with the Chiefs and the Chargers, so it's not like they're kind of hanging on for dear life in that division lead with the Chargers and KC right on their tail. So at 8-2, yes, it's impressive. Yes, I love their defense, but offensively, I don't know if they can hang with either the Chiefs or Chargers on any given Sunday. As speaking of offense, the Colts have still the number one offense in the league, averaging almost 400 yards at offense, 38 total touchdowns this year, which is really impressive. Their defense is nothing to write home about, 17th in the league, but kind of right where you need to be to make a run, right? Just like a middle of the road offense or defense, and then a really elite one side or the other. When it comes to the Colts, again, 8-2 in their division. Yes, they were super hot and then kind of cooled off. But again, everybody knew they were going to cool off because they were on a pace to be the most potent offense in the history of the NFL. And I don't think anybody who even was on the Colts bandwagon was like, oh, yeah, this is definitely the best offense in NFL history, led by Daniel Jones. And that's coming from a podcast that have praised Daniel Jones as being an actual good quarterback. So, yeah, the Colts, again, Jonathan Taylor, the most likely player to win MVP who's not a quarterback, but he won't because only quarterbacks ever win that award. But he's having an amazing season. He might break the single season rushing record at this pace, or maybe even the touchdown record set by LT. So we will see. But as far as Colts go, they've were red hot and they've kind of cooled down a little. Now we go to the actual Super Bowl bubble, which is the remaining 6 teams all in here right now. We have at number 6, the Chiefs. At number 5, the Lions. At number 4, the Seahawks. At number 3, the Rams. At number 2, the Patriots. And number 1, my Philadelphia Eagles. Am I biased? Yes. But I also think the Eagles have to be one because with how much dysfunction around this Eagles team there has been, they've still played a murderous row of a schedule. Haven't really played a perfect game this season. A lot of controversy, a lot of this, a lot of that, and yet somehow still they're 7-2 and the number 1 seed currently in the NFC East. And in all of I'm losing my mic right here. And all of the NFC, they are the number 1 seed. And again, that is with the hardest schedule in the league, a murderer's row where they have played basically every good team, especially after this week, every good team in the NFC and beat them. The only 2 games they lost were the Thursday night games. Thursday night games have been weird this entire season. And then that Broncos game where they were up by 17 points. So again, they've played, though they had those games last year where it was like, oh, and again in that Broncos game, it's like if Goddard catches that ball, they have a shot to win it, or if that gets called a PI, they have 1 shot to win that game. Which last year it was the Devontae Smith drop and the Saquon drop are the 2 reasons they lost 2 of those games. So the defense is finally finding its footing Monday night with the addition of Jalen Phillips from that trade with the Dolphins. Offense, again, hopefully all this A.J. Brown controversy, which I was kind of hard on A.J. on Wednesday. After hearing his comments, there wasn't a thing he said that I disagreed with. So I'm Team Eagles. And again, I don't like when players kind of go against the team I root for, especially when they're on the team. But I agreed with everything A.J. Brown said. So I am an A.J. Brown fan. I'm an Eagles fan first, but I support everything A.J. Brown said. And he was right. He was right to feel that way, to say those things. Nothing he said was wrong. So, again, and I agree with this point where he said, well, when I said nothing, you like the media took it and ran with it. So if I say something now, you're going to take it and run with it. Like, what does it matter? Like, yeah, it is true. He didn't really say anything except when he went on the stream and said everything. But, he was joking with his friends, whatever. Number 2, I have to put Casinos Patriots. And I was going to put them there again, unless they got blown out by the Jets. But everybody knew they were winning that Jets game. The question was just going to be by how much. Drake May, leading MVP candidate in the league. Thank God, because the Patriots fans suffered for those near 6 years without having an all-pro quarterback who's going to be the MVP of the league. But yeah, Patriots, again, they are kind of schedule merchants with how easy their schedule has been, the polar opposite of the Eagles. But again, you can only play who's on your schedule. They got a last place schedule because this was not a good team last year. Completely flipped it. Defensively, they're 8th in the league in defense. Offensively, they're 10th in the league in total offense. Whatever they're doing over there in New England, it's working. Same with whatever they're doing in LA with the Rams. Yeah, it's working. And again, depending on that game that happened Sunday between the Rams or Seahawks, one of these teams might get knocked out of it, because what definitely knocked down the 49ers a lot was getting blown out last week against the Rams, because it was like, oh yeah, you're not in the same class as, the elite top. Well, right here we have six. So that elite top six, that's how I kind of feel about the Seahawks, where it's just the Rams. Stafford's doing something that's never been done before. I believe it'll be a record if he throws for 3 or 4 touchdowns in this game and no interceptions. It'll be the first time in NFL history a quarterback's ever done that. So he is having an historic season. He would probably be my pick for MVP right now, just because I think they've played a harder schedule than what the Patriots have played. But I think it's neck and neck between those two right now. The Seahawks really comes down to, yes, their defense is good. People are talking about their defense like it's elite. I wouldn't go that far. It's 9th in the league. The Rams are 11th, so it's not even in their division. They have like a slightly better defense than the team they play this weekend. But when it comes to the Seahawks, the big question mark is Darnold. We've seen him now 2 years in a row have great regular seasons. What does he do in the playoffs? Like, can you really put the Seahawks at number one when you haven't seen Darnold have even a minor success in the playoffs? I don't know. But again, their defense is good. I like their weapons. Jackson Smith and Jigba is probably the second player outside of Jonathan Taylor who's not a quarterback who would legitimately be in the MVP conversation. So, yeah, there we go. And then last but not least, we have the Lions and Chiefs. So Lions, again, it made me feel better that for the Eagles game, obviously it's an Eagles fan, that Dan Campbell is calling the plays for the Lions now, 2 games in a row. Like, that made me actually feel better about our chances against the Lions, because I was like, is Dan Campbell really that great of an offensive coordinator? I don't know. Like last game, yeah, they won in a blowout against the Commanders, but again, the Commanders are a bottom 8 team in this league right now. I think that's where I had them, bottom 8. Everybody's injured on that one. They lost to the Vikings. They've lost to the Chiefs in blowout fashion. Then they blew out the Bucks. So again, Goff is having an amazing season, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but their defense, 4th in the league in total sacks, 6th most in yards per game for the offense. So Lions, everybody was like, they've lost Aaron Glenn, they lost Ben Johnson. Are they going to be able to keep firing on the same cylinders? And it's, yeah, they have been. The Lions look great. They are currently 6-3 going into Philadelphia on Sunday Night Football, which I believe they're favored in that game, or probably should be. They look better on paper. I'm picking them in reverse jinx, obviously. But yeah, they appear healthy. They look better than they have, especially at the end of last year where everybody was just dropping like flies. So again, Lions, that Super Bowl window, it closes a little bit every year. So you maybe got 3 years before you have to blow this thing up, and you would hope that they can get, football fans everywhere, I feel like, always root for the lovable losers of the Lions, the Browns, the Jets, just to do something. And the Lions doing something for years has been fun. And then Kansas City, I compared it to the slow steamroller in the Austin Powers movies, because they're inevitable. What can you say about the Chiefs? Their defense is not as good as it's been in the past. Their offense is not as good as it's been in the past. And yet still somehow their offense is 7th in the league. Their defense is 6th. So again, the Chiefs, they never look good on paper. You're never watching the game being like, the Chiefs are clearly the best team in the league. They just win the games. Kind of same with the Eagles. The Chiefs and the Eagles are the annoying watchers of the people who watch football are annoyed by these two teams the most, because you watch these games, they're never really fun or exciting. They're never put on a light show like some of these other teams in the top 12 can, where they're blowing teams out. They kind of just win games, lose close ones, and then are just always in the playoffs, always in the Super Bowls. And that's what we have. So there you have it. That was the NFL Power Rankings for Week 11. The top 6, again, in the Super Bowl bubble: 1 Eagles, 2 Patriots, 3 Rams, 4 Seahawks, 5 Lions, 6 Chiefs. And again, a lot of teams in the top 12 on this list all play each other this week. So stay tuned next Friday for our power rankings that I'm sure will shift drastically based on this weekend and how all these teams play each other. So besides that, Casino and I will be back Monday with the Only Sports Podcast, where him and I will be recapping the sports weekend. Go follow us on TikTok to see all our shorts and who we're picking in all the games for this weekend. Other than that, like and subscribe on YouTube and go follow us or download us wherever you get your podcast. I'm Will of the Only Sports Podcast, and you have a great night. I got to do the outro. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.